Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Proverbs chapter 24, verse 1. Do not be envious of evil men, nor desire to be with them. For their heart studies destruction, and their lips talk of mischief. Now you can think of the opposite of this is, where should our heart be? And Jesus said, wherever your treasure is, in Matthew 6:21, that's where your heart will be. And so that's very important. Now, where is their heart? Their heart is studying to advance in this world, which is Babylon, that we are to come out of. So I want to read Proverbs 15:30. Let's go back a little. Because this gives a clue of how you make your heart happy. Do you want a happy heart? Apply Proverbs 15, verse 30. The light of the eye rejoices the heart. Now, who is the light? Jesus Christ says, I am the light that has come into the world that's full of darkness. So if you look upon Jesus, then your heart will rejoice. That's what the verse says, right? And then Jesus says, out of the heart, the mouth speaks. So if you want to have joyful thoughts that come out, concentrate on Jesus Christ in a world full of darkness. So verse 3 of Proverbs chapter 24, through wisdom a house is built. Now what is wisdom? The ability to see the future. What's the world's problem? They can't see. They're blinded. So they eat, drink, and marry, and that's why he had Noah build an ark. Now, put on kingdom goggles and look deep into this verse. Through wisdom a house is built. What's the best house ever built? Ever. Anyone? New Jerusalem. Now some will say New Jerusalem is a city. It's not a house. Well, it's a city and a house. Because God lives there. And in the Bible, to prove it is his house, let's go to Genesis 28. Genesis 28. You can jot down verse 17. And what it is famous for Jacob's ladder. Now he had a vision, and this is a real vision. And 28, and we're going to go to verse 17. Now after he went on the ladder and so forth, it says, Jacob was afraid and said, how fearful is this place? There is nothing but the house of God. This is the gate. Note that. There are 12 gates to New Jerusalem, right? He entered in through one of the gates into his vision, into God's house. And we know God lives there. You can read Revelation chapter 4. And you know that Jerusalem above is the mother of us all. That's Galatians 4. See? See how it all relates? So, God is preparing what? Jesus says, a place for you. And he goes and prepares a place for you to live there. And you'll have a room. There are many mansions in his place where you will abide. And it's all outside this realm. Now go back to verse 3, because with your kingdom goggles, you will see that God had wisdom when he built New Jerusalem. Before he built New Jerusalem, he saw the future, didn't he? He already saw the bride of Christ being in there. He planned this from the beginning. And it says, and by understanding, it is established. So God wants us to do that now, in whatever we build. He who's faithful in a little, here in the simulation, will be faithful in the kingdom. And then when we get to the kingdom, it says that the expansion of his government will have no end. So we'll have many more wise thoughts, preparing for the future. Now we go to verse 4, and by knowledge, the rooms of this house, shall be filled with precious and pleasant riches, plural. I go and prepare a place for you. Store up treasures in heaven, where moth and rust don't destroy. Don't put your heart here, but put it there. And he's going to fill this room with treasures. And we can go to Psalm 112, verse 3 for insight. Psalm 112, verse 3. In Psalm 112, I'll just read verse 1 here. Praise the Lord, blesses the man who fears the Lord, who delights greatly in his commandments. So if you don't follow God, you do not get your room filled. His seed shall be mighty upon the earth. The generation of the upright shall be blessed. Ready, wealth and riches shall be in his house. And his righteousness endures forever. Where will we live forever? In New Jerusalem, where God has many mansions. And he wants us to focus on that, not like the pirates here, focusing on treasures here and on Wall Street, conniving and cheating and what we can gain. See? He wants us to follow the commandments. So he has so much up there, he wants to give it to someone he can trust. And that will use it as an extension of his hand, right? So you go out into the kingdom and you have all those things of God and you distribute with love and helpfulness. See? That's how it should work. It's nothing about greed. That's the way of a dark world. And remember this, the subject comes up a lot. 3 times at my Thanksgiving relative's house. 3 times. The most misquoted verse in the Bible is money is evil. That's a false doctrine. It is the love of money that is evil. They love it so much, these corporations today, or whoever, a senator, a corrupt senator, that they don't care about you. That they're willing to gain for themselves, and their heart is wicked. So don't envy those type of people, because it appears they have so much. Well, they will lose it, and we'll see this is the theme of this proverb. So let's do what God says and take on wisdom and knowledge. And in verse 5, it says, a wise man, a futurist, is strong. Yes, a man of knowledge increases strength. We'll get to that one a little later. Verse 6, for by wise counsel you shall make war. And in a multitude of wise counselors there is safety. Does God practice what he preaches? He says, do not steal. Does he steal? No. So what does God have around him in his throne room? 24 counselors, 24 elders. Read it in Revelation chapter 4. Why? Because God's smart. There's many ways to load a dishwasher. Many ways. So what happens is you have counsel around you. That's what Berea tapped into in Acts 17. They didn't just hear Paul speak and take everything he says. They questioned it. They counseled. Does this agree with the scriptures? They went home to see if it does. And they were patient. So we must have counselors. We must hang around, so to speak, with those with the Spirit that we trust and love, that we see a light shining. Very important. This is going to come up again. We need each other. Do not forsake the assembling of the gathering, as some do, as their custom, just week after week, forsake the Sabbath of God. And it says why? Because we need to come here to do what? Encourage one another for the kingdom, not about this realm. So, we go forward in verse 7. Wisdom is too high for a fool. Almost like a little kid, he's reaching for the candy, he can't get it. That's a fool. It's too high. He doesn't understand it. And when I read that verse this morning, I actually went, wow, that is exactly in Isaiah 55. God says, my thoughts are not your thoughts. Your thoughts are earth. Okay? The Pharisees, Jesus said, are even below earth. Well, my thoughts are as high as heaven. And see why a fool can't grasp that into literally their mind? And that's why the world's blinded. They're in darkness. So do we want to be a fool? We have been called to wisdom. So we've been called out of the world. We have been given God's truth. Now we read that he does not open his mouth in the gate. Now guess what? Where should our thoughts be? In the kingdom. Right? We are ambassadors. Our conversation, Paul said, should be where? In the kingdom, right now. Are we ambassadors, all of us? Right? I just got something right now. Remember Jacob? He saw through the gate, and he was in awe of the household of God. Why that gate? That's the gate that the fool can't even speak. How about you? Do you speak words of the kingdom like Christ? That's how we should speak, with the power of the sword. That should proceed out of our mouth, not our own thoughts. Let's proceed, brethren, in this wonderful chapter. In verse 8, he who plots to do evil shall be called a master of devious thoughts. Who's the master of devious thoughts? Satan the devil. And he did it with Eve. And then Adam bought into it. And then mankind did, right? And it escalated so much that a flood had to come. Correct? And now it's repeating, as in the days of Noah are the end times. Right? And we see it all around. So verse 9 says, the thought of foolishness is sin. There you have it in the Old Testament, the New Covenant. Now, why did that happen? Because the New Covenant existed before the Old Covenant. I know that sounds funny in our English, but Jesus, the Word, was with God. They represented always the New Covenant. He gave an earthly vessel just to give an example, right? And then when Jesus came, he says, I have not come to destroy the law or the prophets, not one jot tittle, but I come to magnify the law. In other words, you have a tassel on and things you see, put it in your heart. Everything, right? The temple you saw, Solomon, concentrate on that one. The New Jerusalem. See? A whole new level. So there you have it. It says in the Proverbs, the thought of foolishness is sin. Here's one. Jesus says, if you even lust after a woman, you have already committed adultery. Where? In that heart. Wherever your treasure is, oh, that woman, oh, she's my treasure, your heart will follow. See? Wherever your treasure is, that's where your drive is, your motivation. And everyone has weaknesses, right? So we got to know, what is our weaknesses? How can we allow God into our heart more and more so we can overcome sin? That's why we have the days of unleavened bread every year. And so we read onward in this, again, wonderful chapter. The thought of foolishness is sin, and the scorner is an abomination to men. I meditated on this. And the scorner, that's someone that mocks people with arrogance. In fact, it's so bad that mankind, it's an abomination not only to God, but to man. It represents man, and they don't even like it. Right? So if man was visited by someone, they wouldn't want that on their resume, would they? Some scorner? They would, come on. But again, man doesn't look towards the future. And so they have scorners. And that's just what it is until they have an eye of light. And once they have the eye of light, then their heart will rejoice. And wherever their treasure is, their heart will follow. And it's just all, there's a lot of connections here. The Bible's very puzzling. It's a lot of pieces that need to be put together. So I urge everyone to read the Proverbs. These are a lot of puzzle pieces. Think of that. When you have a puzzle, it just goes out. And when you read every day, you have puzzle pieces. And ask God for help for the puzzle to be put together. Because there's many false Christ out there. And so we can have truth. And so we read now to verse 10. If you faint in the day of adversity, your strength is small. Remember we read earlier that verse 5, a wise man is strong. See? Why? Because he prepares for the future. What does a fool do? Like Zedekiah, Jeremiah warned him of the future. And get this guy out of here. Put him in a cesspool. Okay? So what they did is they partied. They ate, drank, and married. So when the day of adversity came, Zechariah's eyes put out. He faints. He's weak because he doesn't prepare himself. He doesn't have a future. He has the here and now. That's why you have the pagan holidays. Remember, the Israelites were told never, don't go into those whores. Do you think that when they go like this, come over here, that they're they look ugly? No, very attractive. It's like the Christmas tree. It's all beautiful and has lights and it shines. And the weak ones look at it and see beauty and they can touch it. And then you read Jeremiah 10, it says, do not be dismayed. They put up a tree and they decorate it. And they have these fuzzy feelings and they act like they love one another, but none of them will be strong in the day of adversity. They will run. Read Revelation and they'll be scared of the future. God's holy days are about the future. Man's are about the here and now, the fuzzy feelings, the senses of life. Don't be fooled by those. Have wisdom and be strong in the day of adversity, and maybe you'll be accounted worthy to escape the tribulation which will come upon the whole world. And we go to verse 11. Rescue those being drawn to death, and hold back those who are stumbling to the slaughter. Now, it's talking about those in the church. It's not our duty to save everyone in the world. They'll have their harvest. Right now, Peter wrote that the judgment's on who? The house of God now. Oh, the house. The house of God. The New Jerusalem. The ones with middle names in Revelation 3. New Jerusalem will be your name. That house is being judged now. So, in the faith, if someone's being weak, gravitating towards pagan things, the ways of the world that you've got to come out of her, then what are you to do? You're to help them. And so that's very important, and you could jot down James 5:19 through 20. You can save, actually, someone from hellfire by showing them the way. You can't directly do it, but you can give advice representing God. And that's very important. Now, but where I want to go is Jude. There's one chapter. Let's go to Jude, and I'm going to read 22 to 24. Go to Jude, verse 22. Now, on the one hand, show mercy to those individuals who are doubting. Doubting what? Their vision, their wisdom. They're stuck in the here and now. But on the other hand, save others with fear, snatching them out of the fire, hating even the garment that has been defiled by the flesh. Now to him who is able to keep them from falling and to bring them into the presence of his own glory, blameless and exceeding joy. And so what we have to do is encourage one another about the future. It's okay, Mickey. You can endure this. And you tell them. And now they might not like it because they might like what that's offering. Because there's always a bribe. And there's a bribe of the world. And so we must help others and encourage each other. And we know that it could rescue from the day of slaughter. In verse 12 we read, if you say, behold, we did not know it. Isn't that ignorance? We didn't know it. Remember the world? What do they say? Ignorance is bliss. Right? And it's a license to do whatever you want. Right? Now, is that approved in the Bible? Ignorance is bliss? No, it says, does not he, God, who searches the heart, consider it? And the keeper of your soul, does he not know? And does he not repay to every man according to his works? So it doesn't matter if you are ignorant on the day of judgment. You can't say, but I didn't know. Now, there are sins of ignorance, but then God works with you, right? And it's your duty to study. See, at the time of everyone's judgment, they already had enough time where God can say, now I know. If they listen to God, they obey his voice. But if they just go, I ignore it. And it's not bliss. It's actually destructive. So there you go. You have a proverb. The Proverbs are awesome. They're powerful. And they're always true. Always. Verse 13. My son, eat honey because it is good and the honeycomb is sweet to your palate. And that's a fact. It gives energy. And what it's referring to is the next verse. It says, so shall the knowledge of wisdom be to your soul. The knowledge of wisdom? The future? Why will it help your soul? When you have found it, then there shall be what? A reward. And your hope shall not be cut off. A reward. Store up yourself treasures in heaven where moth and rust don't destroy. And no thieves can go in that door and receive that, right? There's no con artist going to take over your treasures. So focus on the things of God. And it says here, you will be rewarded. You have to put the whole chapter together. Verse 15. O wicked man, do not lie in ambush against the dwelling of the righteous. Do not spoil his resting place. Now, what is our resting place right now? The sanctuary of God. Aren't we to rest on the Sabbath day? In what? The sanctuary of God. That's why we don't leave our gates. We don't go to a mall today. We don't go where they're enslaved. So we stay within the sanctuary. Now, who lies in ambush? Satan. And you can jot down 1 Peter 5:8. We know that Satan is like a roaring lion. He's ready to consume anyone. So he wants to destroy us, but we should follow the light. The only way we'll be taken by Satan is we follow the ways of this world, and we're deceived by their schemes. And so we go to verse 16 now in Proverbs 24. This is my favorite scripture in this chapter, and I've given a sermon on it. You could look it up and perhaps gain some things from it. It's a great study. I'm not going to go into it for time's sake. I'll just mention a few comments. We'll read it. For a righteous one falls 7 times and rises up again, but the wicked shall fall into evil. And it's like they're glued there. Okay, they're stuck in it. They don't get back up, do they? Why did God like King David so much? Because he got back up, right? And so that's what John, if you jot down 1 John 3:7, it says that we must practice righteousness. You know what that is? Getting up, getting back up. When you sin, it actually should hurt you. It should disgust you. See? The wicked man enjoys it, makes excuses for it, to stay in. So we don't want to do that. We want to get back up. It's like a baby walking. Remember when a baby first tries to learn? Does that baby get up 7 times? And that's how we should be, because we are the children that God is shaping. See? And so what are we getting up to? The kingdom. And that's up, right? That's up. This is where our thoughts should be. We need to share more with each other and not be influenced by the friends of this world, or so to speak. In fact, it says don't be friends with them. And you could say hi and do their things, but don't accept their doctrines. Because Satan appears as what? An angel of light, and his ministers do too. It looks so beautiful. It's like that Christmas tree. It looks so shining. But what will it do? Like what happened to Adam. You will die. Very deceptive. And so now we go to verse 17. Do not rejoice when your enemy falls, and do not let your heart be glad when he stumbles. I know someone that they later repented, but when all the fires happened in California, they were laughing. And those liberals, they deserve it. And the gods rain a fire on them, And it's like, whoa, 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 whoa. Well, if you do that, guess what? He probably has liberals in his life. And it goes like this. It says, verse 18, lest the Lord see, and it displeases him, and he turns away his wrath from him. God takes care of our enemies, doesn't he? If you laugh at them, God will take away his wrath on them, and they will turn, and they will come to you because you're laughing at them. We are not to do that. And so, there's many verses. You could do a study on that. You could jot down Nahum 3:19. That's a good one. And also Ezekiel 25:3, where the Amorites laughed at Israel. They laughed, and boy, they were conquered. So now we go to verse 19. Do not fret. Do not fret yourself because of evil men, nor be envious of the wicked. For there shall not be a reward to the evil man. Now just stop there for a second. You know why they don't get a reward? It's like that man. He made all the barns, and he filled it with all his livestock, his produce, it says, and all his good things. It says that? His produce and all his good things. Maybe his Xbox, all these things, and he planned for retirement. And then he says, you fool, today I take your life. And he dies. And that's what happens to the people. Like, they seem like, wow, look at, they have all the ants. Look how happy they are. And they're just going to end that way. It's not of God. Don't be envious of that. And what I want to do is I want to go to Psalm 37. Psalm 37. I'm going to read 1 through 9. It is powerful. And remember, Jesus said, store up treasures where? Where, brethren? In heaven. And so, why? Because then your heart will follow. Now, what are these treasures? And so forth. And Psalm 37 gives a hint. I'm going to read verses 1 through 9. And it says, remember, do not fret. There it is again. It's the same language. Don't fret yourself because of evildoers, and do not be envious against the workers of iniquity, for they shall soon be cut down like the grass, and wither as the green herb. Trust in the Lord and do good. Dwell in the land and cherish faithfulness. What is faithfulness? It's wisdom, seeing the future, being faithful. Delight yourself in the Lord, and he shall give you the desires of what? Your heart. Remember Moses? He left the treasures of Egypt because he desired the ones above. That's what Moses did. And he will receive treasures in the kingdom. And it says, commit your way unto the Lord, trust also in him, and he will bring it to pass. And he shall bring forth your righteousness like the light, and your judgment like the noonday. Rest in the Lord and wait patiently for him. Do not fret yourself because of him who prospers in his way, because of him who carries out wicked schemes. Cease from anger and forsake wrath. Do not fret yourself. It leads only to evil. Now listen, the last verse. For evildoers shall be cut off, but those who wait upon the Lord, they shall inherit the earth. And we're talking about the new earth. Remember, where moth and rust don't destroy, it says? Now, the earth has a lot of many things on the new earth, right? Do you think it just has nothing? That is substance. And God wants those that he trusts to be an extension of his hand, to represent him, to flourish in that earth. See? And so it's very important. Proverbs back to 24. And we're going to read verse 21. My son, fear the Lord and the king, and to do not fellowship with those who are given to change. Now we know many in the world are given to change, right? But even in the church, you got to watch out for this. And I'm going to read James 1:8. It's just one verse. These are the ones that are given to change. And in 1:8 we read this. He is a double-minded man, unstable in all his ways. There's no root in them. See? And they just like float over here, make everyone happy, and then over here. They're double-minded. You don't want to associate with double-minded people. That's one foot in the world, one foot in the church. See? They want the best of both worlds, but they can't have it. So we go back to Proverbs. Verse 22, for their trouble shall rise suddenly, and who knows the ruin of them both. Now these ones that have double-mindedness, do they have counselors around them? Do they sharpen iron with others? You ever do that? Just pick up the phone and call someone and with your armor, with the armor of God on and with the sword? And they go, have you considered Jeremiah 23? And you're like, well, they go, shing, 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 and they just bring out in these Bible verses, and then you leave, thank you for that. And they go, thank you for that. It's reciprocity, isn't it? Within the ways of the Lord. That's who you need to hang around with those that have understanding of the truth. Not experts in the world, but experts in the kingdom of God. Do you want to be an expert in this? That's what we should all desire. Verse 23, these things also are for the wise. To have respect of persons in judgment is not good. Now, in modern terms, that's favoritism. We don't want to show favoritism in the faith. Imagine that. Just because someone is closer to you, you give them a little light answer compared to someone else. That would not be good. Now, verse 24, he who says to the wicked, you are righteous, the people shall curse him, and the nations shall abhor him. Now, I think of the verse in Isaiah 5. Remember, they call evil good and good evil? That's calling a righteous man. Now, wicked and a wicked man good. And that's what many are fooled in the church. They look at the world and they see their lives and they think, wow, look at they're so, and they want to hang around them more than those in the church. And what that will do is you can be deceived. It seems that they got things right. It seems like they're there for them. But in a second, they would leave you to die. Why? Because they're not seeking the kingdom at that time. Their time will be later. How can they encourage you about the kingdom? They'll encourage you with a hug now and like some things now. They're experts in the world. Okay, in 25 we read, but to those who rebuke him, it shall be a delight to correct another church member, and good blessing shall come upon them. Wow, you have here, he shall kiss the lips of him who gives a right answer. You know what kind of kiss that is? That's a holy kiss. The right answer is a kingdom answer, right? Not one that just feels good now. You know, come on, I just need a hug. Give me a hug. Oh, but it does nothing for solving the problem. We have verse 27, prepare your work outside and make it fit for yourself in the field, and afterwards build your house. Doesn't that sound like verse 3, through wisdom a house is built? They consider many things and do many things before building the house. And I want to go to Proverbs 12:11 for that one. Now, there's many scammers in the world, and that can creep into the church. And there are many in the church where say the husband's very talented, say an incredible architect, just incredible, and wants to do architectural for Dubois and the new buildings and has that talent to do it. But meanwhile, the wife's out working 9 to 5, head spinning around, but this, come on, you can do it, honey, you can do it. And years, decades go by. 20 years, and the wife is supporting the husband. And what happens is, nothing happens because they're not applying this verse. Let's go to Proverbs chapter 12 and verse 11. It says, he who tills the land shall be satisfied with bread. So architect, go get a job down at the gas station. Go get a job as a waiter. Go get a job somewhere else, even if it's part-time, first. And then, but he who chases fantasies is void of understanding. Now, if your fantasy is to be this architect to build big, giant buildings, maybe you need to be an intern first. Maybe you need to work small and get paid. But no, that's beneath me. I'm the Dubois builder. See? And even the world gets this right with acting. Right? So, I remember someone told me that there was someone that he wanted to be an actor, but he didn't want to work. And so he asked someone that had money, can you give me some money? I'm going to be a great actor. And the man says, well, why don't you act like you have money? And it's like, it means nothing. It's like, come on, you need to become, a lot of actors are waiters, right? They get this verse. They put their hands to the plow and work. Take that shovel and work, whatever it is. And then support that fantasy job. And then one day the actor, I want to be an actor, says, I can't wait anymore. I'm making $35 an hour waiting, and now I'm making $72 an hour and higher. I got to release that. See, it's a transition. Instead of having just the wife work for the man. And so that's not how it should work. It's right in the Proverbs right here. Right? We have to work to have our fantasy job. Now let's go back to Proverbs 24. And verse 27. So we prepare outside and we do that. Now 28. Do not be a witness against your neighbor without a cause, nor deceive with your lips. And I thought about this one. What is a good example of this in the Bible? In fact, always ask yourself that question. Where is this in the Bible? Right? And I thought of Jezebel. She had 2 witnesses, and they broke this verse, didn't they? They were a witness against someone that they didn't even know. Right? Without a cause. And they lied for gain. I'm sure they're paid off. Isn't that sick? I once moved into my neighborhood, and a really nice lady came over and talked to us, so nice, and started talking about their neighbor and how evil they are. And I was like, wow, and like all this story, and it was a horrible story and stuff. And then she wanted me to like help her and get it. And I go, wait, this is not, I don't even know them. In fact, I cut it off. This neighbor wanted me to break this verse without a cause. You don't do that. Now we go to verse 29. Do not say, I will do so to him as he has done to me. I will give to the man according to his work. Isn't that the way of the world? Evil for evil. You know the golden rule? Isn't the golden rule the opposite of that? Do unto others as you want done unto yourself. Would you want someone to do evil for you? How about you? Do you ever do anything wrong to somebody? Would you want them then to fire back with thunder against you? Every time you did something wrong to someone? I had many mistakes interacting with our relatives. 3 major ones. I had 3 major mistakes. And I pray to God that God can help me. But in all 3 of them, they did not thunder back on me. I wouldn't want that. So practice the golden rule. And show them to the kingdom and be a positive person. And not become angry in this world. Seek the things above. And we have here, verse 30, I went by the field of the lazy man and by the vineyard of the man without understanding. Wanted fantasy, as they just did nothing. And what happens? And behold, it was all grown over, thorns and needles. It covered the face of it, and the stone wall was broken down, and all these needles come on them, and they go, that's because of them and them. They don't help me over there. They don't do this, and they blame everybody for all these thorns in their life. Right? That's what happens to the fool. And it says that Adam, because he didn't follow God, there will be thorns and thistles. Remember, that was the curse? So a wise man deals with them and cuts them and cleans them around their house. The thorns and thistles, and they can come in different, they don't have to be literal thorns. Okay, so now what will happen if that happens? It says here in verse 32, then I saw and considered it well. I looked upon it and I received instruction. This is how it started. Yet a little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to lie down while everyone's out working and doing their thing. They look at, I got this good. They're kind of stupid, aren't they? Look at this. I get to relax. Then your poverty comes stalking in, and your wants like an armed man. Now you see people that are successful in life. Evil. The rich are evil. Money's evil. Money is evil, the biggest misquoted verse in the Bible. Maybe it's because that's happening a lot. Thorns and thistles because of laziness. So we're called out of the world where they just want everything given to them. That's why we have entitlements and we have that liberal mindset, right? And the whole world owes me. Now, will that help you go into the kingdom? Would you want that mindset in someone that could flourish and help others? So we need to read the Proverbs. Do you see the theme of Proverbs 24? Don't be envious of them that they have all this stuff, it seems, in a world, but they just live in the moment. Concentrate on the kingdom of God. Put your hands to the plow and do everything as an ambassador and help others and shine the light. And put your treasures in heaven and your heart will follow. And then God will shape you into a masterpiece. You can read that in Ephesians 2. And it's beautiful. So read the Proverbs daily. Tomorrow is 25. It talks about what a king does. And it's beautiful it's an honor to read such a wonderful chapter preserved by our great God in heaven.